There's a couple ways you can bust through that self-care guilt. I have entire episodes on this, but the Chris Notes, as I like to call them, the quick and easy Chris Notes on this one, is just you've got to bust through the bubble first. You have to do the uncomfortable work of taking care of yourself. And the second the old shitty thought of, I feel guilty, I should have taken care of my kids first, I should have done this or that around the house first, or this is more important than me, that type of thinking, you just have to recognize that that's coming up, stop it in its tracks, and turn the volume down and switch your thinking to something else like, yeah, maybe I should have cleaned the house before I went and got a massage, or we don't have the kind of money to afford me getting a massage, but I really deserve it, and I really needed it, and it feels so good to get one. Do you see where I'm going with that? Like, you want to just catch it in its tracks and add to that shitty thought, because you're never going to really replace the shitty, guilty feeling that you have from doing self-care if you're not used to doing self-care, but you can add to that shitty feeling some justifications, some reasoning. You can start employing, that evidence in your mind that, wait a minute, self-care and ultimately taking care of myself is the best way to help other people. I've got a couple more things here I want to talk about, but I'm going to sidebar for a sec. And I really want to dive into this because even though it's not today's topic, this is hugely important for people to hear, especially if you experience guilt when you do self-care. And that is, I cannot tell you how profound it has been for me making self-care the priority has completely changed the way I help and love others. Where in the beginning, before I really made self-care a priority, I gave away my love, my power, my energy, my time, my money, all of that to anybody who walked past. And certainly anybody who walked past who maybe somewhat looked like they would be nice to me. And what that ultimately did was turn me into a giant asshole, because I would be so filled with resentment when I didn't get the love and energy and time and money and all of that shit back from the person I gave it to. Well, hello, that is not how this works. Self-care, self-worth, self-love, self-compassion is not transactional. My friends, let me say it again. Self-love, self-care, self-compassion, self-worth is not transactional. You do not have to do anything to get it. You generate it yourself. So I know that's a little bit off topic when I'm talking about the feelings that, make us not want to do self-care, but it's really important and I want to hit that home. And if you pick up a nugget of wisdom along the way, it's worth it to let me rant and rave, okay? All right, moving on. Another reason that you might not be feeling like doing self-care is that you're just straight up avoiding it. And you might say to me like, Chris, why the hell would I avoid something that's good for me? Well, if you've been listening to the podcast, right? I just said we often avoid things that are good for us because our brain is broken and it tells us that sometimes the things that are good for us, that it's work. And our brain doesn't like work. It wants it easy. It wants it, it wants to sit on the sofa and watch TV all night and not think about anything, right? It wants to scroll endlessly through TikTok and grab little nuggets and move along, right? Like, our brain is just designed to want to avoid even the things that are good for us. So if you feel like, I don't really feel like doing self-care, I don't really feel motivated, I don't really feel like doing self-care, I'm just avoiding it. Think about maybe why you're avoiding it. Like, let's look at self-punishment. Now, that could be a whole episode in and of itself, and if you've not really worked through your own self-punishment, just reflect on that phrase, self-punishment, and believe me, it will uncover all your thoughts about it. But if you're avoiding something, it's usually because you're, engaging in self-punishment, you're feeling overwhelmed or depressed, or there's a lack of motivation. And any of those subjects could be entire shows in and of themselves. And all I'm here to tell you is that those are reasons for wanting to avoid doing self-care. So if you find yourself just not wanting to do self-care and you take a minute and you kind of reflect on that and then you figure out, well, I'm just kind of avoiding it, right? Like I'm out of practice. I'm not doing it. That might be some of the reasons. You could be punishing yourself, going back to some of that guilt you might be experiencing. Or you might just be too overwhelmed, like not knowing what to do for self-care, not knowing where to start, feeling like there's way too many other things that you need to do first. And that, again, goes back to the guilt. And maybe it's the depression, right? Like if you've experienced depression, if you've had seasons of depression in your life, maybe you're on the cusp of, the start of another cycle. And then the other factor, of course, that could be making you avoid the self-care or feeling like, oh, I'm just avoiding it, is just the motivation factor, right? Like you just don't feel motivated. You don't feel excited to do it. Again, I got some ideas coming up here shortly that might get that excitement going for you. Sometimes it's just being exposed to a new idea of what can be self-care that will help to motivate you and get those juices flowing. So number 5, what if you actually are like not doing self-care because you aren't motivated? I mean, the long story short, I'm not going to go really deep into this, but taking care of yourself shouldn't require motivation. You don't have to feel motivated to take care of yourself or to take any action. Like if you've been wanting to write a book or learn a language or work towards a promotion or, achieve any fucking weird thing you might be into. You do not have to feel motivated to do that. That is a huge misconception. A lot of people think like, oh, I'm just going to wait around until I feel motivated to do it. And then once that lightning strikes, right, that once in a gazillion chance, I'm going to feel motivated to do something, then I'll take action. It's exactly the opposite. You need to take action right now. Right now, whatever little tiny action you can think of to get you closer to what you want. And then one after the other will fall into place until you're feeling motivated. Like, it is such a misconception. You think you're going to wake up, like, let's say you've never ran a day in your life, but you watched somebody on, TV or something, or somebody on Instagram, or you saw a TikTok or something, and like, it was like, wow, that person finished a marathon. Do you think you're going to wake up tomorrow and be like, yeah, let's run a marathon? Probably not. At least not if you're in the Pacific Northwest. It is like 50 degrees and raining, right? You're not going to feel motivated to go do it. So you have to actually get your ass out of bed and go for the run. And then the run kicks in and running makes you feel more motivated. It is the same with self-care. You don't have to feel motivated to take care of yourself today. You just have to take care of yourself today. And that will motivate you to do more for yourself. And if you're thinking, I'm not motivated to take care of myself because I just don't feel like it, rewind the podcast, listen to it again, because we're getting down to why you don't feel like it. We're trying to uncover those reasons. Number 6, maybe you don't feel like doing self-care just because you feel stuck, right? Like nothing's working. I'm in a rut. It's the same old, And usually if that's the case, if you're feeling stuck and that's why you're not doing self-care, it's because you can't see very far in front of you. Like usually when we're feeling stuck or you're feeling like, you don't know where to go or what to do or it's the same old thing, it's because you're looking straight down. Meaning that you're focusing on what is happening right now, which normally I would tell you is a really good thing, right? Being present is an amazing thing that you can do to help yourself feel better. However, that's not the kind of looking at the moment I'm talking about. When you're feeling stuck, like you just can't get yourself to go forward or move forward or get motivated, it is usually because your thoughts about whatever you're trying to accomplish are on a repeat loop. So if you're thinking to yourself right now, I feel stuck, I don't know what to do for self-care, everything I've tried has been a hit and miss, this journaling, this hippie woo-woo shit, the massages, none of that's helping. I don't feel any better about myself. I'm just stuck in my bed, hating on myself, not going anywhere with it, right? Your head is on a loop, and it's going to look for evidence to prove all of that bullshit true. Well, hi, I'm Chris, and I'm here to help you feel better and to have different thoughts about taking care of yourself so that you can take care of yourself and in turn generate motivation to take better care of yourself, more tailor-made care of yourself. And if the first thing and the only thing that you can do today to take care of yourself is to take another sip of water, right? Like everybody, if you're not driving, if you have anything to drink near you, hydrate, hydrate, hydrate. I don't care if it's summertime. I don't care if it's wintertime. I don't care if you're, flying to Australia right now, or if you're, knee deep in, a project or something. Drink your water. That's an act of self-care. That's one little thing that you can do. And as you're actually, putting the water bottle, the cup, the glass, whatever, to your lips, I want you to think to yourself, this is an act of self-love. This is an act of self-love. Is it radical? No. Is it going to totally transform your life in 30 days? No. But is it a small 1% thing you can do right now to show yourself that you do love yourself, that you do care about yourself? Yeah, sure, you betcha. It is. So take a sip of water, and as it hits your mouth, as you're taking it in, just say to yourself, this is an act of self-love. This is me taking care of me. Every time you do something small like that, remind yourself that's why you're doing it. Because that separates you from feeling stuck into feeling like you're doing something. All you're doing is pulling your dumb brain's attention to a different way of looking at the same thing. You drink water, coffee, tea, pop, whatever, all the time. But every time you do it, if you say, this is an act of self-love, this is an act of self-compassion, this is how I take care of myself, isn't that going to change the way you look at drinking water or tea or coffee or whatever? Yeah, it is. It's going to change that in your brain. And then your brain's going to start associating with that tiny act as something good you're doing for yourself. And then it's going to look around and be like, but what else could we do? And really, that's the whole point of this podcast, is to help train your brain and get your brain to the place where it is craving and wanting more options to do self-care. All right, last but not least, I want to talk about the last contribution, the last thought contribution to feeling like I just don't want to do self-care, which is you might feel like you don't have control. And we've talked about this a couple of different ways, a couple of different times, a couple of different episodes. But I really want to drill down on this, and I want to talk about this feeling of I don't have control. So typically, if you're saying to yourself, I can't do self-care, I don't feel like doing self-care right now, if that usually follows the sentence or the thought that your brain, percolates up, that because so-and-so won't let me, or because I don't have any money in the bank, or something's like I have too much work. There's something outside of you that is you're having these thoughts that these things outside of you have control over you and whether or not you do self-care. And I am here to get a little in your face and call you out on that total bullshit. If you're thinking you can't do self-care because your partner is a giant asshole and every time you try to do self-care, they make you feel like shit, that is something outside of you that you are giving your power away to. Now, does that make that feel any less like shit? No, it sure don't. But the challenge and the practice is to continually do the self-care until one of two things happens.